The Multipod podcast brings multipotentialites together to discover common interests, projects, and offers in a spirit of community and collaboration. Join me, Ted Craig, as I feature guests from around the world here to share their stories and find meaningful connections. Your call to action? Reach out to them after this episode and say hello. Well, I'm coming to you this week from Nova Scotia. My family and I are on vacation. We're here on the southwest-ish coast of Nova Scotia. And you can kind of see right about out there in the distance is a beautiful beach called Maviette Beach, which is on St. Mary's Bay. And if you're looking at a map, you'll see the Bay of Fundy, the famous Bay of Fundy, which is between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, where they have the highest tides in the world. There's a little spit of land that kind of sticks out on the side, the Nova Scotia side of the Bay of Fundy. And then we are on the other side of that spit of land, so another bay is called St. Mary's Bay. So we came here 3 years ago on a family vacation, and we love this area. Now, that was late September, so we said to ourselves, if we ever have the chance to come back here in the middle of summer, when hopefully it'll be a little bit warmer, we can actually go swimming over at that beach, then we should. And 3 years later, here we are. My episode this week is with Apryl Schlueter, who I met a couple times now over the last year. And it follows up on the conversation that I had in the most recent episode with Becca Campbell. Kind of coincidence, I reached out to Apryl and see if she was around, if she'd like to record an episode here soon. But I knew that there'd be a great tie-in because Apryl is really interested in this question, this topic or theme of accomplishment. So is there a difference between accomplishment and completion? And that's really what we chat about in our conversation that you'll hear and you'll watch coming up. With Becca and I is about, well, what is completion, especially as multipotentialites? You know, how do we kind of measure that? How do we look at it? Are we even interested in completion? Do we like to try things? How do you really make that decision about what to complete and when and how to define that? So that was with Becca. Now with Apryl here, maybe we take it a step further, or maybe we look at it from a different angle in terms of what is accomplishment. Is it the same thing as completion? Is it maybe a different take? And our takeaway in the end is that it's a bit more of an emotional response, you could say, how you respond emotionally to a task, to a project, to something that, you know, you had set your sights on doing, and maybe you tried it, maybe you finished it, but how did you feel about it? And that's where you get the sense of accomplishment. Now, this taps in with Apryl's new project, which is a podcast, which I'm very excited to see her start and to see where it takes her. It's called the Accomplishment Project. So she'll be talking to lots of people about this idea and really exploring it more in detail and getting some more data. And she's thinking of writing a book about it. She's already written a book, so she might write a second one. We'll talk about that also because, again, that's a question of, well, will that come to completion at some point? Of course, the book. At what stage would she feel accomplishment in doing that, or maybe in starting it and then seeing where it goes? But yeah, it taps in with a lot of the coaching that she does and the community kind of work that she does. And I know, again, a lot of you watching and listening will know of Apryl. We'll have met her at Camp Indy recently. I saw her there, or the Everything Conference last year. But I'm really excited to introduce her to a lot of the folks who maybe haven't come across her yet. So check out Apryl on Substack. She's got herself set up there. She's got a newsletter. The podcast trailer is out now, and depending on when you're watching or listening to this episode, you may see the first few episodes that are out in the feed too. We'll put all the links here, in the course, in the notes. But it was a pleasure having Apryl on the show. She's been on my list of people to invite, so I'm really glad it worked out. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and thanks for joining me here in Nova Scotia. Well, this is a Multipod, and we are back for another episode. And as you can see, for everybody who's watching, and you'll hear her in a few seconds, I'm joined by Apryl Schlueter.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Ted.
Yeah, I'm glad it's worked out. This continues the, I guess, trend of the last few episodes of people who I've met in person, and we've met now twice in the past year, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We met at the Everything Conference, and then just a few weeks ago at Camp Indy.
That was so, exactly a month ago as the day we're recording. Awesome.
That's right. Yeah. So of course, it's like definitely want to have you on the multipod. And there's lots of great projects and interesting topics that we can talk about. I definitely want to get a bit more of your background because I'm guessing all that being said that there will be people who've been to the Everything Conference in Camp Indy, one or the other or both, who've met you. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of our listeners in Puttyverse and Location Indy and other kinds of communities and stuff.
WDS.
Yeah, absolutely. Who may know you for sure online, but maybe they don't. And who's this person, April? So I'd love to just introduce you to the broader audience, and we'll frame it a bit around your views, your perspective on multipotentiality, because, of course, that's the underlying theme of this podcast. So,
Yes.
with that in mind, then, how do you approach multipotentiality as a concept? Has it been a part of your life? Maybe in other terms, of course, in other ways of describing it, but has it been part of your life for a long time?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I didn't really hear the term multipotentialite until I went to World Domination Summit. So that
Hmm.
was in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I talked about it in my book and how I've realized that that was me. And it really unlocked a lot of doors because I'm one of those types of people where I've probably done, aside from the things that just scare me, right? I'm not a swimmer, so nothing crazy, swimming across a lake
Like
or something
Michigan.
like that. Yeah. Um, Everything that I set myself to do, I do, and there's really not a lot of things that I haven't tried yet. Right? I've done the skydiving. Um, I've done improv. Uh,
You're a
different,
musician.
travel. I'm a musician. There's just
Yeah, yeah,
I'm an engineer.
yeah, yeah.
There's so many different things that I'm interested in. And from when I was younger, I always thought about how I, was interested in music, but I was interested in math and science. And
Mm,
I like being around people, but I also like being alone. And
yeah.
I always feel like the personality tests, I always would kind of hit the middle because I'm like, I'm this, but I'm also that. I like
Mm,
to think big, but I like to think detailed. And I have, some more tendencies in one way or the other, but I also am able to be agile and versatile. And when I went through my coaching program, this was in 2015, 2016, I was trying to find this word. This was one of our activities to describe myself. And this is before I knew what multipotentiality was.
mhm,
But I chose the word versatile because I am definitely a Jill of all trades. I could do so many things, but I'm never the expert at anything.
mm,
And that's always been a struggle of mine. And so when I started this journey of running my own business, I realized I have all these different things. I mean, my career path goes back to, I have a degree in electrical engineering, so I am
yeah.
a nerd like that. Love geeking out on tech.
Hmm.
After that, I worked in IT and engineering, and then became a high school teacher. I taught high school math,
Oh,
and
I didn't
so
know
it's
that.
a
Hmm.
totally different set. And then after teaching, I moved into higher ed, more on the administrative and finance side, so crunching the numbers, and then making
Hmm.
things run efficiently. And then after that, I am where I'm at, where I run this company called The Cheerful Mind. It is a
Right.
coaching business. I write books. Run a community. I'm starting a podcast, or I have started a
Yeah.
podcast. I can say
Yeah.
that that's official now because that's out in the world. And when I realized that I was a multi potentialite, it was like, great, what can I do with this now? And
Mm,
when I was starting my business, I was thinking about, I love being a performer. I was a cheerleader in college. So being on stage is a huge part of me. I like to
huh,
be a showman. I did musical theater. I sang in high school. These are all parts of me, but I didn't go the route of, you know, being a pop star or something like
yeah.
that. That was just not in the cards for me. I don't have the confidence in my voice, and I didn't want to do what it took to
Mm,
sacrifice certain things in order to do that type of job. And so I was able to think from the perspective of how can I weave some of this stuff in to
mm,
what I'm doing, and, exploring, do I want to be a public speaker? I dabbled in that a little bit, but then also realized that I have a family, so I can't
mm,
necessarily travel the world doing talks. And so what can I do? I did improv for a year and a half as part of my business to help me become a better speaker, but that helped me be
Hmm.
on stage. As part of that, I got to perform for 8 weeks, and that was awesome. And
Yeah.
so I've been looking at the multi-potentialite side of me because of the fact that I think what we struggle with most is having to want to do all the things and having different projects. But when it comes to a business, sometimes it's hard to sell a lot of products, right?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
each thing, you can it requires promotion, it
Yeah.
requires creating the product, and then if people know you, let's say, people know me as, an author, they might not even think about the fact that I also do one-on-one coaching. So I have
Mm.
to then sell both of those things. And they
Hmm.
also don't. So you see how sometimes it's just hard to promote all of those things. And so I am somebody who cares a lot about efficiency. And in the past couple years, have just been starting to realize that I need to narrow my offerings just a little bit so that either there's a flow between and an intertwining between all of them so
Hmm.
that people know that I can do all these things, but also just have, a main focus that I can lead people into that then unlocks the doors to my multi-potentiality.
Yeah.
And, the way that I coach, there's different things that I can talk about, but I talk about work-life balance a lot and productivity, which really takes everything that you're doing and tries to streamline all of those things.
Hmm.
So in my personal life, I have compartmentalized my life into 14 different commitments that I have to
Okay.
maintain. And some
There's
of
only
it is
14.
only 14, right? And 5 of those are related to my business
Yeah.
and my work. But the other are just, managing the house, my kids, my own health and wellness, like things like that
Mm.
that are just parts of my life that they're little projects that I have to make sure that they're moving, and even my volunteer work and different things like that.
Yeah.
So, I am a multi-potentialite, but I also know when it comes to my career, I have to focus a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to burn myself out promoting all the things
Mm.
all the time. And so I've been just trying to figure that out. I'm still in the process. It's always a work in progress.
But you've made some changes and adjustments in that way over the last little while,
Yeah, I've had to try to focus a little bit more.
and you've seen
Uh,
some, I guess, results, quote unquote, or things changing.
I think so. I think that the more I can see the connection between everything that I'm doing and having their little hubs,
Hmm.
it will get better. But I also have always been in a place, even for the last 5 years and with the pandemic and everything, it's just been overwhelming. My
Mm.
kids are at a place right now, they're 16 and 14 as of this recording,
Hmm.
and they are starting to be more self-sustainable. I'm finding more time, but it's been hard to
Yeah.
navigate. I have both of my kids are neurodivergent, so that requires a little bit more hand-holding, or
Hmm.
has required. It's getting a lot better now, but it's taken a lot of demand on my time to have to focus on what matters. And I
Yeah.
think in my business, I was trying to do all the things at the start.
Hmm.
And when the pandemic happened, or when my kids were diagnosed, or just when stuff happens in the world, I've had to let my business take a hit to some
Hmm.
extent because I just can't focus on everything and it's
Yeah.
overwhelming. And I just couldn't do it anymore. So I had to take a little bit of a step back and reevaluate how my business is run so that I can promote all the things that I'm doing and so that everybody could pick their flavor on how they want to engage
Yeah.
with me
I like that.
at different levels, right? From just
Hmm.
listening to a podcast, which would be free,
Yeah.
to working with me one on one. But it also allows me to engage with people in a way that tackles all the things. And if somebody ever were to ask me, "Hey, do you wanna do a talk and be on stage?" I would say yes, but
Hmm.
it's not the primary thing that I do anymore. But it
Okay.
was something that I was trying to showcase myself as in the past, to just be like, "Hey, I do all these things, pick your
Yeah.
choice," but it becomes this decision paralysis of some sort, right?
So what if you let your clients, customers, etc., followers make that choice? That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Instead of
yeah,
us having to choose, well, I want to do this and this and promote this, put stuff out there. I mean, there's obviously some work in that, but you kind of say what you do and what you're prepared to do, what you like doing.
mhm,
Let people choose, right? And then,
yeah,
yeah, you never know what you might be doing tomorrow,
yeah.
in a matter of speaking.
Yeah. And there's an aspect too sometimes where, people will reach out to me and say, "I don't know if you do this."
Mm.
And then I have to come back and say, "I do this. I can absolutely do that for you. It's just not the solution for everybody, but let's create that custom solution." So I like to pitch myself as, if you don't know if it's something that I can handle, just ask.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the answer is probably yes. I
Mm.
love problem solving. And if there's a way that I can help that's not even a way that I'm presenting offerings, I will make it work because I want
Mhm.
to help people ultimately at the end of the day.
Mm. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, in our last episode with Becca there, we talked about the concept of completion. And that, as much as anything, drew me to talking with you about your concept of accomplishment,
Yes.
which is really interesting. I don't know if we've ever talked about that like in such specific way on the multipod here. And it's such a great topic for multipotentialites. Like, it's certainly related to, well, here's a question then. Do you see, is there a difference? What are the differences between the concept of completion and accomplishment? How are they
Hmm.
different? Maybe how are they similar too?
Yeah. When I was listening to yours and Becca's episode, I thought about completion and what I thought was different about how we might approach this conversation. And I want to start with a caveat by saying that I think that words carry a lot of weight sometimes, but we also have to remember that we all interpret things differently. So,
Mm.
Becca had her perspective of completion, and I agreed with a lot of it. And there were other things where I'm like, well, that doesn't show up that way for me. And
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that. I
Yeah.
I I think we need to embrace the nuances between the definitions of
Mm.
words, right? Because
Yeah.
even with the word work-life balance, I care about work-life balance a lot, but I hear all the time people are like, "Don't worry about, like, work-life balance doesn't exist. I would rather say harmony, or I'd rather say
I
something
see.
else." And but when they come down to it, we're all talking about the same thing,
Hmm.
right? So it's just interesting. So I want to make sure that people understand that. And I take that approach with my first book when I talked about work life balance. You have to define it on your own.
Hmm.
And as part of the recent book project that I'm working on, which is called The Accomplishment Project,
Right.
I have a perspective around accomplishment, but this isn't about me. This is about everyone else
Mm.
being able to understand what accomplishment means to them. And so that's why I'm going through and interviewing at least 100 people, asking them their perspectives on accomplishment so that I can showcase what's possible, and then you can figure out and latch on to the way that you want to define it.
Hmm.
And so the way that I look at accomplishment and completion even is, when I think about completion, I think about, what's the dopamine hit that I can get for checking something off the list and saying, like, I did that. Okay, next. Right? It's being
Yeah.
able to check a box, push it
Mm.
aside, and move on to the next thing. So that's how I look at it. When I think about accomplishment, I think that there is more of an emotional tie
Mm.
to the word. So when you're working on something, I think you mentioned in the podcast with Becca, she's writing a book. So when she completes that book, like, you want to see that through to completion. Whereas when she was going through school, she was like, nope, I completed.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the definition that society might see, like you have the plaque
Yeah.
on the
That was
on the
cool. She could
wall.
define that for herself. Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, completion for a degree might be like, I committed to this from the start, and I want that diploma. I know that it
Hmm.
doesn't really, like, it just sits on my wall, but like that just shows that I've completed. But also, I think that I would look at that as, that's a huge accomplishment because I put all the effort and time into going to every single class,
Mm.
passing in every single class, doing all the homework, right? Completion would be the homework, right? But
Mm.
the diploma at the end might be the accomplishment for me.
Right.
And so for me, I personally don't like committing to something that I can't accomplish. So a lot of times I'll say, I'm floating this idea,
Hmm.
but I haven't committed to it. But the second that I commit to it, I'm working towards an accomplishment, right? So,
Now, accomplishment doesn't necessarily mean finishing, though, right?
right,
Right.
right. Totally. Because there's always going to be something else that comes after that. And it might be completely something different, or
Mm.
it can be an extension of something else.
Yeah.
So let's use the podcast that I'm
Yeah.
starting, for example. It's called The Accomplishment Project. I met you a year ago, and I finally got to the point where I said, you know what? I think I want to do a podcast.
Hmm.
I had been noodling on it for years because people were saying, you have a voice for a podcast. You should do a podcast. And I said, that's great. But do you know the work that goes into making a podcast? I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I cannot do that with everything that I have. I actually had to get rid of a lot of stuff in my life to make room for this. And
Interesting.
so, but the second that I committed to it, it changed everything else that I was doing in my life so that I could make sure that it happened. And one of the biggest things that I learned from you was, you just have to start with a trailer. But
Yeah.
I had to do all of these other things before I could even do that trailer, which I just released a couple weeks ago at this
Right.
point, because I needed to understand from the ground up, what am I doing? Am I really going to be able to sustain this? All of the processes required to make sure that if I'm going to put this out in the world, that I'm going to see it through, because I am not the type of person to start something, do a couple episodes, and then stop,
Hmm.
unless it's come to its natural cadence and
Sure.
is finished. And so accomplishment for me really, in terms of the podcast, was getting to that point of releasing the podcast, but now I actually have to do episodes. So there's a second phase of accomplishment that comes after that. But the fact that I just needed to put my stake in the ground and say, I'm doing this and have
Yeah.
it be seen by people, that
Mm.
was kind of one phase of this process of this
Yeah.
project specifically. And I also, when I think about accomplishment, I also care about the journey,
Mm.
right? We're not just checking off a box to check a box. It's, what were you doing to get there? How were you feeling about it? Were you enjoying the ride?
Yeah.
Or were you just doing it because you felt like you had to?
Mm.
Like, I don't feel like if somebody told me you need to get, you need to do XYZ, and I did it, but I didn't enjoy the journey, or I didn't want to do it. I was doing it because somebody else wanted me to do it. That doesn't
Yeah.
carry the same feeling as something that you intentionally decide to do.
Hmm.
And then you work towards that and complete it.
Yeah.
It's more about, so like completion could be the end game, or when you decide it's the end. But
Right.
the accomplishment is that whole process of what it took to get there, right? If you're running a half marathon, which I ran 5 in the last couple of years,
Oh, wow.
every single one was an accomplishment in itself. But the goal for me was to beat my time from when I was in my 30s.
Hmm.
And looking at that journey as a whole, that entire story of what each of those half marathons, the role that that played in getting to that specific accomplishment, it was a long journey. There were
Yeah.
highs, there were lows, there were things that, injuries, things that I
Mm.
shouldn't have done, things that I did really well and then wanted more of. It kind of encompasses a little bit more of that journey. And if we can look at accomplishment as something that we set our mind out to do, and then enjoying the journey and embracing the journey to get there, I look at that more as accomplishment. But that's my
I
own
like that. I mean, it makes sense.
definition.
Yeah. I mean, in your coaching, then, like, can you, I guess, guide people in determining how they define accomplishment at the beginning of something, or do they have to experience it and then look back in the past, or as it comes to an end, let's say, and say, yeah, now I feel like I've accomplished it, and that definition would be based on your coaching and a lot of the topics that we're talking about here, right? And how you frame the nuances, right? How you frame accomplishment.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, because I think sometimes we don't know what we don't know,
Yeah.
and we operate based on what we need, right? I think that there was, back in the day before I wrote a book, there was this feeling like I needed to write a book because I have so much to say and I'm just going to feel so accomplished when that's over,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
that's a lot of hard work. I'm going to do it. And then when the book was done, I was like, okay, I'm still me, but now
Hmm.
what? Then I wanted more, right? So it was one milestone accomplishment on the journey, but it was not the end game,
Yeah.
right? And so when I realized that I was done with a book, I said, do I write another one? Do I do something else? it opened the doors to trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. But I didn't know how I was going to feel after I wrote a book. And I burned myself out
Mm,
writing my book about
mm.
work-life balance and how you're supposed to avoid burnout. So
Right.
it's just very ironic because I'm like, I could do it again, but I don't want to do it that way.
Yeah.
So if I have to take a new journey and
Yeah.
it's going to take me 10 years to write a book, that's going to be the journey.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe
Interesting.
even adding new markers or new paths to how I accomplish if I'm doing the same thing again, right? I self-published my first book.
Mm,
This new one, I have the opportunity to consider maybe uh, getting it traditionally published, but I don't know.
right.
And so there are some parameters that I've shifted in this next book project as I go through, and I don't necessarily know what the end game is. I'm really focused on the journey this time because I'm exploring this topic. And so I might have a different definition. You can check with me at the end of this all.
Yeah,
If it
sure.
actually turns into a book, even with the age of AI,
Yeah.
do books carry the same weight? I have to see, we have to see. So
Yeah, that's
it's just
fascinating.
interesting to I could have a completely different perspective, especially too after I talk to 100 different people with 100 different perspectives on this topic itself. And that's what I'm most excited about learning in this project is what does the world think and what are the different definitions that we can adapt?
Mm.
Which one is for you, or do you want to make one on your own and completely go rogue?
Yeah.
The world is your oyster.
Is it possible to know for you what makes you decide to do a thing, to start a new project?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this always, and this comes into the idea of just my coaching too.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always work on with clients or anybody who is in our community, we always lead with our core values.
Hmm.
I have my core values tattooed on my arms.
Ah,
They're
I see.
fun, accomplishment, connection, and authenticity. I have other values too, but those are the four
Hmm.
that are my moral compass, are the drivers, are my decision makers. And so when I decide that I want to do anything, I run it through that filter. Is it fun? Will I feel accomplished at the end? Does it allow me to connect with people? And am I allowed to be my authentic self? If I
Mm.
can't have those four things, then I have to decide, is it enough to only
Right.
have two or three or one?
Yeah.
Or do I say no?
Mm.
And this has been a great way for me to say no to a lot of things so that I can kind of wrangle my multipotentiality of my brain. I'm like, oh no, is it? And it could also be maybe not now,
Okay, man.
but in the moment, does it hit all of the markers and does it deserve space on my calendar to commit to?
Mm.
Because that's also the one thing that I'm always struggling to fight against is time.
Yeah.
So, because it's something that is finite, and then also your energy levels and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
Sometimes I just don't want to do something at all in any day, and I won't. And I can't be super structured all the time. I'm very structured, but sometimes my brain won't let me. So, having these four values for me is how I know if it's something that's worth it. And so, especially choosing this podcast as my big project for 2025,
Hmm.
I'm going to have fun doing it because I'm connecting with people as I'm doing it.
Mhm.
It's about accomplishment, so clearly whether I accomplish something or not, it's there. And then authenticity, that is something that I am excited about because I love
Yeah.
talking to people who are willing to be vulnerable and authentic. So it's full circle great. And it gives me something to enjoy doing as I'm working on this book project, which
Mhm.
is taking a long time and isn't feeling as fun. Like this is how I'm trying to
Mm.
bring the fun into this book project. So
Yeah, I can see that hopefully will happen for you, because it's great. It's funny when you go to a different medium, maybe, if you're doing video and then you do some writing or vice versa, And it just helps give a different perspective on things, different creative approach to a topic. And now, yeah, looks a different way. And having conversations might encourage you then, yeah, okay, now I feel like doing some more writing as a result, right? Over time.
Yeah.
So,
And it is interesting too because I have been writing on my own, but the fact that people weren't seeing it
yeah, yeah.
made it hard for me to talk about it and be excited about it because people couldn't see. And
Mm,
so starting to take the things that I've written in the book and parsing them out into blog posts and
yep.
trying to decide to be able to showcase that because I can always put it in a book format later, right? But I just felt like I'm creating all this amazing content and nobody gets to see it. So
Mm,
that's not fun. So
no.
let me do it in a way that people can, and then they can enjoy the journey. And then hopefully, if I do have a book, then they get all excited about the final project. We'll see.
Did you mention that you're on Substack?
Yes, I am on Substack.
Substack
And
comes up again.
yes, and it was interesting because I have definitely been working with AI to help me figure out this
Ah,
my whole approach to podcasting. And I have a couple friends that have Substack. And I said, well, what if I published it there? What would be
mhm,
the pros and what would be the cons? I need to have the smallest amount of steps. But at first, when I was just thinking about the podcast, I was not excited about the idea of that. But the fact that this is also a writing project
mm,
made that a very easy yes to
okay.
use Substack. So that everything, the writing, the podcast episodes, all of that you'll see on Substack. But what's great about it is I can also document my journey. I can
Mm,
do writing, I can do my own videos, I can do audio, I can have
yep.
other people contribute if they want to. So if anyone wants to write for
Yeah.
the Accomplishment Project, I'm down for it. Everything, there's just a lot of different opportunities that I think Substack provides. But at the same time, you can listen to the podcast if you're a Spotify user or Apple. I've got
That's
that
true.
too. So if they only want to hear my voice, then that's fine. But if you want to see what I'm doing, then go to YouTube. If you want to see the entire project, all the writing, all the videos, all anything, it's all kind of condensed together in Substack. So that was what I
Yeah.
chose.
I mean, it's a good platform that way because he puts everything in one place. You can have the audio, the podcast, you send it out in a newsletter and
Hmm.
all this kind of posts. So it's a reason why a lot of people are using it these days. You can put so much in one place. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's the Cheerful Mind at the Cheerful Mind is your Substack. Also, the Accomplishment Project. Like this one thing I do find a little confusing with Substack. I mean, ultimately we can always share links and people will find their way there.
Yeah.
But what name basically would you say when you say, "Oh, come
Follow me
see
on
my
Substack.
Substack"? Yeah, what
So
would you say?
I have a URL that
Oh,
basically
okay.
forwards to the Substack. So it's just www.theaccomplishmentproject.com and it
Okay.
goes straight there. So and make it easy for people to
Yeah.
check it out instead of saying like, oh, go to my Substack and follow me here. But if you are a Substack user, because I was not on Substack before I
Hmm.
decided to join. I think I was subscribed to a couple people's stuff, people that I know,
Right.
but I wasn't on there myself as a user. And so I thought it would just be easier to give
Mm.
something direct so that it's not like follow me here. But if you are somebody that's on there, then it's easy to just say, okay, I'll just follow April here. But if you
Right.
want to see, if you just need the entry point, the URL is the easiest way to get there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Good. Yeah. So of course we'll have all those links in the notes here too. And if people are searching for the podcast that say outside of Substack,
mhm.
same thing. They can just search for the Accomplishment Project, right?
Yeah, the Accomplishment Project. I mean, I think also on YouTube, my channel is called The Cheerful Mind, and there's this
Mm.
actually a second Cheerful Mind out there. So I've got a
Oh,
little
there's two.
buddy.
Yeah.
So you just need to make sure that my name is also on the name of the
Okay.
channel, so it's easier to find me there. But there will be a section on the Accomplishment Project there as well after I post the video version soon, because I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
there. I have it. I just need to. It's not up yet, and I need to do some cleanup there. And it also shows everything else that I do on my YouTube
Mm.
channel. So the
Okay.
Cheerful Mind for all the social media stuff, but yeah, the
Yeah.
Accomplishment Project for this project specifically.
Cool. And then the last thing I want to, really emphasize not just how people can follow you and all that stuff, which is great, but like how do they take a step further to interact with you? And again, are you looking for guests on the podcast? Do you want to interview people? Just have conversations? Maybe they're not recorded, but to get the data and feedback. Like, how could if people are really curious about the concepts of accomplishment,
Mhm.
and as multi-potentialites, juggling all these different projects, work-life balance, right? You're a great person to talk to. So, how would you like to interact with people in that way?
Yeah, in terms of the main thing that I definitely want to spend a lot of my time working on right now is the accomplishment project. And so you can always check me out in terms of my services and everything through thecheerfulmind.com. That's my website.
Hmm.
But specifically, if you go to the Accomplishment Project website, which is the Substack, at the very top of the page, there is a way to participate and contribute to the project. So there's a link, I think it just says contribute to the project. And that has a Google form that gives you a bunch of options so that I
Okay.
know. And then I will reach out to you at that point if you are up for scheduling a informational interview. It's a
Oh,
series of
neat.
questions that I'm trying to gather data. So 100 data points so that I
Yeah.
can report back on my findings when that's over.
Hmm.
That's a great way to participate. If you're somebody that's like, I love to be on podcasts, or I have an accomplishment story that I want to share, or I just want to share my expertise on a topic that helps with accomplishment,
Hmm.
that is also another option. And so that's all encompassed on that form. But there's all these other ways. I'm completely open to partnering with people. I want this to feel like something that we're all putting together.
Yeah. I like
So,
that.
putting together.
Yeah.
But,
Neat.
yeah, that's the best way to engage with me right now if you want to support this project in any way, is to just fill out that form, and
Hmm.
I will reach out to you as soon as possible.
Good. Yeah, I can see it here in the top of the page here, right in the top menu bar, so it's easy to find.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Well, it's great. Yeah, I was super excited to have you on the show and
Yeah.
get people get to know you better, follow what you're doing, and yeah, it's fascinating topic, accomplishment, right? And how it's such an existential thing, and multi potentialites, I
Yeah.
think, maybe struggle with or just try to get our heads around. We want to do so many things and
So many things.
change jobs and start different businesses. And then the whole thing, even then, of like, well, you start a business, but there's so many things you want to do within that business and offers
Right.
there that you choose, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad we've had this conversation. I'm sure we'll continue the theme and other people coming up and other conversations. So we'll be part of that. But most of all, I definitely want to wish you best of luck. And I know you're going to enjoy the podcast experience, the journey. It's a wonderful thing to do. It's a wonderful medium, right? You can really be yourself.
For
You can
sure.
explore these ideas, meet great people. And I know you're going to love it. So I'm glad you're doing it.
Yes. And I have to definitely thank you for being such a great
Yeah.
encouragement and helping outline some of the steps that are super unclear along the way. So I
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
appreciate you so much. And thank
And
you for
it's
having me.
funny because like here, it's almost basically a year since we first met and we talked about it, right? Which also goes to show that like, you don't have to start something tomorrow. It may take a while, but you'll get there. And things happen in their time. They happen when they're meant to happen. And that's a great example, right? That yeah, just
Yeah. And you can take your own path. I think that
yeah.
I could have started the podcast right away
Hmm.
after ETC, but
Yeah.
there's also the piece of I've always just jumped on doing things in the past, and that was my own learning, and I
Mm,
wanted to do it right. I wanted to do it in a way that didn't feel like I was burning myself out. I'm gonna still make rules as I go because I don't know all the answers yet,
mhm.
but I'm
Yeah.
just gonna enjoy the journey, and I think that that's what's most important,
Good.
and so understanding that can definitely lead you to, the accomplishment you seek, but I think it's
There
also,
you go.
what is the feeling that you want
Mm,
from these accomplishments, because we have to, you know, I think for me, completion doesn't carry the same weight emotionally as like, okay, I did
mm.
that. I brushed my teeth this morning. Cool. That's great. Right. But if it's like I've been struggling to try to sleep 6 hours a night and I slept 6 hours a night, that could be an accomplishment
Yep.
uh, for somebody too, if it
Yeah.
has that
Interesting.
emotional piece to it.
Hmm.
But
Maybe that's the different thing side of it. Then there's completion, but then there's how you feel about completion and accomplishment.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Cool. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to those first few episodes and exploring the topic some more. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks to my guests today for sharing their story and what they're up to. You can find all the links and resources that we talked about in the description for this episode. Really don't hesitate to reach out and make that contact. Now you know that they exist, they need to know that you're out there too. A simple email or message can suffice. Or send a more substantial message if there's something that really jumped out for you. The Multipod has a new website, themultipod.com. Here you'll find the archives of the podcast in its previous form, all 111 episodes, a number of bonus episodes, and our Everything Conference mini-series, as well as the new episodes and the resources therein as they are released. Over time, we'll build it out for the best searchability and referencing possible so you can easily find who you're looking for. But a nice spreadsheet will suffice for now. The website also has a new guest application form. Let us know what topic or topics you would like to connect with people about, and we will set up a recording. As a guest, this is your primary task. Come prepared. Like all podcasts, the Multipod will thrive thanks to sharing, reviews, subscribing, and commenting if you're on YouTube, and just generally getting the word out to multipotentialites that this resource exists. So help us spread our reach and create more opportunities and exposure for everyone. You can reach me at themultipodcast@gmail.com. That's themultipodcast@gmail.com. Or again, the website is simply themultipod.com. New episodes will be out on the 1st and 15th of every month. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today, and we'll see you again soon.